This is the Information Man. I want to thank everybody out there who may be listening, who's coming into the chat room. Definitely, I respect all of your support. Today, I did a video. I recently, at some time ago, as you know, did a video related to why African Americans are going back to Africa. And I was working on this video with my man Lionsden from the Far East, and he's not with me right now. We put together a very simple video, and from that video, I've gained some traction. People have been commenting, whether good or bad, and I discovered a brother by the name of Muhammad Bey. He sent me a message stating that he's doing the same thing in terms of he's traveled to the continent. He's very experienced. Brother's very knowledgeable about the continent. He's encouraging us as a people, Black people, to tear away our fear of travel, to get Africa and not make Africa just a part of our imagination, what we see in pictures and what we hear about when people do lectures in our colleges and on various social sites. But he's talking about actually tearing yourself away from that construct and actually going. Okay, how to go now, how to tear away your fear and just figure out what is the mystery, or what we believe is the mystery of the great continent of Africa. And in the video, I talked about how, God, I wished I had stood and had pyramids behind me, the way Brother Muhammad Bey had the pyramid behind him. I mean, it was surreal. It was real. And you saw the little rainfall behind me as I was speaking about this brother. And so I have him on live here. I want everybody to give the brother some love. He's got a GoFundMe. He's trying to make a series of films related to Africa and why we need to take our behinds over to Africa and engage with the people there, engage in the culture. So with that said, I want to introduce Brother Muhammad Bey. Brother, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Information Man, for having me on your program today.
Thank you, brother. I want to, first of all, how did you actually find me on the YouTube? Maybe that's an obvious question, but how did you find me?
Well, I started doing research. Any video I found that had reference to the phrase "go back to Africa," I investigated. It lead me back to people like yourself. So that's how I started locating people, and one video just led to another, and before I knew it, I found.
Okay, we just have a little bit of say whatever you're saying again, Brother Muhammad Bey, because technology is acting weird on us right now. So the technology folks, if you can hear me out there, put a 1 in the chat room. He'll get back on sooner or later because this is how the technology works. Thank you for being here. Everybody for coming in. I'm waiting for Muhammad Bey. He was on with me and there's some kind of technical difficulty right here on his part. Maybe he can fire himself back up into the chat room. Everybody in Facebook, thank you for coming on board. Everyone's coming in a little at a time. I really appreciate the support. Can everybody hear me though? Can you press 1 if you can hear me? Greetings, everybody in the chat room. Wiseman, Logan, thank you for being here. M. Mitch, thank you. Driving and listening, thank you. And I'm sure more people will come in as they go along. So I'm going to send the brother another a link because I think some kind of way he got cut out of the. I'm going to send him a link. So everybody be patient. Brother Muhammad Bey is a dynamic brother, and I can't wait for you all to hear what he has to say. So I'm going to send him another link just in case something
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. I was just okay. I was in the process of sending you another link. I was people are starting to come into the chat room, and I was just letting them know that we're just having a technical difficulty. This technology, I noticed it acts really weird when you are about to talk about something real.
Yes.
And if we were talking,
I noticed the same thing. My internet. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, brother Bey. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I've had more than a few occasions where my internet went out just as I was about to say something, you know, worthy of being repeated. But the internet that I happen to have does that sometimes, and I need to get it upgraded. So that's on me. That's my bad today.
It's okay because, like I said, when you're talking very constructive conversation, for whatever reason, the technology wants to go weird. If we were talking foolishness or about to talk foolishness, we would get top-notch clarity.
Oh yeah. I hear you.
So let me once again, brother, to repeat yourself. How did you find me? Because we got people coming in the chat room, and I don't think they caught this part of it. How did you find me? And tell us a little bit. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself, brother. You're very dynamic.
Okay. Thank you. Now, what I did was I just researched the phrase "go back to Africa," and I just started working backwards from all the news stories about white people saying "go back to Africa, go back to Africa." In fact, I did a teaser today, which is going to go up online after our conference call. Okay. And so what I did was I researched every phrase related to "go back to Africa," and then when I found videos of people who either wanted to go back to Africa or already gone there, or people in Africa who want our people to come home, I started researching those channels.
Okay.
And that's how I found you.
Okay. Brother, and thank you for that. As we go along in the interview, you'll probably see my head moving here and there. Don't worry. I'm simply trying to put what we're doing into the social media. So I'll be, sending stuff here, sending stuff there. Over here, I got a lot of people on Facebook that are hearing what you're saying right now that are seeing me. So I'm just trying to play with all my media here because like I said, I'm going to push this to everything I got. So a lot of people, along with your following, of course, I'm pretty sure you've got probably a large following of people that are, checking you out. I'm going to push it in all the avenues that I have so that we can, and then I'm going to do my best to give you a donation, send a donation to your GoFundMe for your project, brother. And encourage you.
Thank you very much, sir.
So with that said, brother, with folks coming into the chat room and people that will be hearing this even after, tell the good folks out there a little bit about yourself. Who is Muhammad Bey? What's your journey?
Basically, for the last 20 odd years, I've had a growing interest in Africa. In the early 1990s, I became a publisher. I published a newsletter called Africa Link, which ran for about 7 years. It had a modest readership, but I stopped publishing in 2001, right after the 9/11 attacks. During that time, I worked at a foreign consulate for Liberia and Sierra Leone here in Philadelphia. There's actually a genuine African royal family here in Philadelphia.
Wow.
And I worked with them off and on for over 10 years. In fact, more than 10 years. And I don't work with them right now, but the last job I had with them was helping them interface with the World Bank. So I have some experience in working with diplomats and working with a diplomatic environment, as well as other areas of interest like computers and technology, which is why I've been doing videos. Originally, I started doing videos on international trade.
Wow.
But in the last few years, you can find my videos. They're all on YouTube. How to make money in import-export was a very big video series for me. It was small, but it was a video series, not a film series.
Now, brother yes. Muhammad, let me ask you this question, and maybe I'm being a Nazi moron here, but it sounds like you have some type of business background, or do you have some sort of what's that background, or any?
Well, the background that I primarily have is in marketing.
Marketing, okay.
Right. So I'm also currently running a classified site called the Bay's List, which is an experiment of mine to see if I can try and make it a going concern, sort of take over from other companies. But that too is another project that needs more time and marketing. But recently, I decided to really focus on Africa and the growth of African business and the awareness, the growing awareness, not only of African Americans, but of Africans themselves, of the great need for us to bridge the gaps between the African states and the diaspora as a whole, and to see them really as one entity. And I think that mentality is beginning to take shape all over the world.
So to see them as one entity.
Mm-hmm. To see them as one, in the way that the environmentalists see one earth, one ocean, one sky, one continent.
Yes.
Africans in the diaspora, despite the fact that they speak 1,000 different dialects and have different needs and wants and interests and desires, they really need to see themselves as one collective entity, because the truth is, Black people in this world have no friends.
Oh, brother, let me just say something right here to you.
Mm-hmm.
You're 100% orange juice correct, because I did a video just this past week, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but Black folks are being killed. And I know this intimately because I work in mental health. I deal with brothers in the prison system who have mental health issues, and I work in that capacity of trying to help them on a medical level.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on in Los Angeles is crazy. You've got these, you have the Latin or the Mexican mafia. And I know this personally because of working in the system. They have put a green light on killing Black folks in Los Angeles, California. And Black folks are being firebombed out of their dwellings. It's been going on for quite some time. And I did a video in talking to the good people out here and saying, Black people, we don't have any friends. It doesn't seem like we have a lot of friends, or people have some sort of issue towards us, even when we're not even messing with anybody.
No, but things will change. All the people who think that Black people are to be looked down on or referred to as goy or schwarza or shiksa or whatever, or laughed at or made fun of in Hollywood films, all the people in the Brazils and the Haitis and other parts of the Caribbean or the South who don't think they're Black or don't think they're African, when the African states finally begin to pull together and stand up on their own 2 feet and become what they already are, the center of world events, and they come to realize this, if they haven't already, and they begin to act in accordance with that understanding, all the people who aren't Black and don't want to go back to Africa,
yes,
they'll be lining up and getting their dashikis and showing up at the airport talking about, I'm Black too.
Exactly. One of the areas in the video that you discovered that I engaged in with my good friend Lions Den, who's back east. We do commentary together, videos together. We used to do I do some podcasting, some internet radio podcasting as well, brother. And one of the things I was saying is that we have to bridge this gap or this relationship with our people or the diaspora. We need to change the narrative, because in America, I know I'm a Generation Xer. I grew up with that whole Tarzan nonsense. And that's a lot of times that's where we would get this narrative that Africa was this really gruesome place where there's just animals and it's a wild jungle and everything's out of control. And that was the narrative that was painted. And even when I was a kid, and as embarrassing as it sounds, brother, you remember a time when if you called someone African, they wanted to fight you.
Exactly. I mean, in my time, I have seen people come to gatherings and business events who were from different islands in the Caribbean, and would get ready to fight you if you said that they were Haitian.
Yes,
as opposed to Bahamian or Cuban or something. And these same people are blacker than me. Some of them have afros as big as Luau Cinder or something, and they want to fight you to a standstill because they're not African. But like I said, when the world begins to see who they're dealing with in terms of the strength of African economies, resilience of African peoples, the unity of the African continent. This is something that's in the works. It's not happening right this second, but it's slowly taking shape. Those same people will begin to line up, figuratively and literally. It's just a matter of time. Everyone isn't going to get into the line. I mean, there's people like you, people like me. We make up probably less than 1/10,000th of the quote unquote Black diaspora right now.
Yes.
But those people, those numbers are slowly beginning to accumulate in dribs and drabs, 5s and 10s all over the diaspora. So it's going to take some time, and that it will accelerate as time goes on. So it's really just a matter of time. By the time you're my age, you know, the Black people will probably be lining up to leave the country.
Now, what is your perspective on what's going on in Ghana? Because if I'm not mistaken, they made an announcement not too long ago that they're welcoming African Americans. They're saying, welcome, come here, become a citizen. What's the phenomenon of that, from your perspective on the ground, brother, there?
Well, basically, one, it's very good news. And I've been hearing about the right of return, the right of abode for descendants of slaves, people, what I call them prisoners of war, if you ask me, taken from the West Coast. And it's a very, very good thing. Not everybody has the time or the money to move back to Ghana, but the Ghanaians, their heart is in the right place, and so are their logistics. And I myself have begun to look into the question of returning to Ghana and into other countries. So I've already put my money where my mouth is, because I'm already working on residency in Egypt. So I'm already, putting my money where my mouth is, because I'm married to an Egyptian national. So I'm not speaking just as someone who's sitting on a porch stoop going, hey man, how are we going to go back to Africa?
Yes.
In the month or so that I've been back to Africa on 2 trips, I've done as much research as I can, and me and my fiance got married. So I've already solved 50% of the problems required for someone to move into an African country over time.
Now, let me ask you this: for someone like myself, I follow a brother on YouTube, and you probably have heard of this brother because he's been traveling to Africa extensively. He goes by the name Dynasty, and he has a program called Searching for Uhuru. And he's often talks about how, particularly African Americans, how sometimes we use these excuses about, well, it's too expensive, I don't have the money, or I don't know what to do. I'm going to be honest with you, brother. I think we as Black folks in America, which is some of the things that hold us back, we use a lot of excuses. We beg for what we want, and then we get what we want, but then we beg for what we need. And so, given what you're going to do with your film, how would someone like myself, who is now getting very fired up and charged up to say, you know what, I'm going to make this trip. I've got the means, I've got the ability, but what is it that holds me back, right? What would you say? How would someone like myself and everyone out there listening, how would you encourage them to get started, brother, from what you're trying to do with your films?
Action defeats doubts and fears. Until my fiance suggested that I come see her, it hadn't even occurred to me to visit the African continent, even though she was my fiance and I had the money and the time to do it. So I did it, and it opened my eyes in many ways. In fact, I had been banging my head against the wall, wondering how am I going to ever, make a transition to the African continent? And then, my new relationship with her fell in my lap and answered all my prayers. So the answer that I can give you, for what it's worth, is, make a decision to, you don't have to move and go live in any African country. Just get out of the country and go see the continent for yourself. Also, go to Facebook, go to LinkedIn, go to Zing, start joining the groups there. There's lots of Africans who will be more than willing to guide you or to befriend you. You need people on the ground. You need friends on the ground. You need people who know the cultures, who know the dialects, who know the ins and outs, who know the red flags and the landmines.
Yes.
And these are the things that you need to do. So befriend people. You know, there are plenty of African associations, you know, the Sierra Leonean Association, the Liberian Association, the Ghanaian Association, the Nigerian Association. You know, for a long time, I was of the opinion that, quote unquote, Nigeria was a bad place. It wasn't a bad place. It was just run poorly.
Okay.
Okay. Nigeria has all the potential to be the engine of West African commerce, trade, and industry. Okay. They have, you know, billions of tons of oil. They have other resources. They have by 20 years from now, they're going to have 1 billion people in their country. They have all the earmarks of a great nation state. And all they need to do is manage their resources, because if they manage their resources, and I'm not just talking about the oil, I'm talking about their people. Yes. And I'm not stupid enough to believe that they need my advice. But if they hear this conversation, you know, by all means, please manage your resources. And the African states are beginning to do this. They're beginning to issue cross-border passports. They're beginning to get rid of the mentality of the old colonial borders. They're beginning to talk about the regional currencies, because let's face it, what the United States and France and NATO did to Libya has not been forgotten. All eyes in Africa are on Libya and what happened to them, because they were the most prosperous. And this is very important. This is an important distinction. They were not only the most prosperous country in Africa, they were the most prosperous country on the Mediterranean Sea.
Wow.
And that is a very important distinction, because, you know, European nations, especially the western half of Europe, is always trying to extract North African countries, particularly Egypt and Libya, from Africa, as if they can sort of pull them out of the continent or something and make them Mediterranean societies instead of African societies. And that's not going to wash.
I tend to believe, brother, just from every time they go around this planet, they get to digging. You find, as I call it, black bones. They get to finding us everywhere. They're finding us in Europe before the Europeans got there. They're finding us in parts of what we call Israel, right? And so my attitude, the way I look at the diaspora of the world, is that all of that is Africa.
Oh yes, I mean, definitely.
We're from all of it. And one of my concerns is with Nigeria, as you know, that Buhari met with President Trump. I call him President Trump. That's just my little stick. And I'm concerned because, brother, and I don't want to take us too far into another area of what we're here for, but I'm concerned that every time an African leader gets involved with the United States and gives that little visit, just the way Mugabe at one time was in bid with the United States and the British powers, until he decided to say, you know what, I don't want to be a lapdog anymore. And that's why they had to get rid of him, and they put sanctions on his country, which caused them a lot of economic problems, but yet they wanted to blame everything on Mugabe, and he wasn't a perfect man. Hell, no man.
No.
But I'm concerned that the people of Nigeria, or Africa as a continent, those different countries, that they're not going to really benefit from this relationship with the United States, because as far as I'm concerned, African people have never gotten full bellies off of American foreign aid.
No, they haven't, because every dollar in aid that enters Africa, or has ever entered Africa, was matched by several dollars, several $100s, in fact, of material goods leaving the continent. So for every billion in aid that entered Africa, 10 or 15 billion in raw material, oil, or food left the continent. And much of that aid, as they call it, went into the pockets of corrupt politicians. It's sad to say.
Okay. That's the one thing that always concerns me, being in person, looking at everything from the outside.
And there's a new understanding taking place in the minds of African leaders, that this phrase which you hear, it's my turn to eat, that mentality is going out the door with the older generation that grew up and went to the colonial schools and wanted to be an Englishman and wear knickers and live in Scotland. Okay, that mentality is going out the door. The African continent is the youngest continent on Earth. Everybody, 70% of the people on the continent right now are under 40 years of age. Okay,
wow.
That means millions and millions of men and women, many with skills, many with not, many without, who are going to be looking for opportunities for jobs, opportunities to start their own businesses, maybe to go back to the land and start generating your own crops and everything. Because a man who grows his own food, that's a free man.
Woo! Now you said it. You hit it on the. You put it where the goats can get it with that. Because let's just be honest, in America, there was a time in which you had a hunter-gatherer type of lifestyle.
Exactly.
Right? But living in American society where we're so, and I talked about that in my video, how, we may have to give up certain conveniences that we have in America, but then there may be a better trade-off for us, which is such as like growing your own food.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly because, in 1799, 80% of the American population in the colonies was living on farms.
Wow.
They stood behind a plow and they had their musket strapped to their back, and they were real men and real women, and they were really free because they just threw off their oppressors. They had their own land, and they kept the natives at bay with their advanced technology. That's a kind of freedom. They're sleeping with one eye open, but at least they're free. And today, America is exactly the opposite. If the food stopped coming into 10 major cities where the largest number of Black people live, you could exterminate most Black people in the United States just by cutting off the food in the top 10 major cities.
Yes.
And most of us don't grow food. So I say that all these things dovetail into one another. The only reason I'm, trying to go back to Africa on a full-time basis is because I honestly do not believe that I can, quote, make it in America. I've tried. I'm 56 years old. I've worked for 36 years. I don't own a business. I've tried, setting up corporations after corporation. I have no financial backing. No one wants to give me a loan. My family, doesn't take my work seriously, so I'm a bit of a loner. So I find that this is the only route for me, because Americans are so busy being individualists.
Oh God, yes.
That the whole individualism movement is going to do America to death, and not because I say so, but because that's what's happening.
I remember I went to San Francisco State University, brother, and San Francisco State was known at that time, was known as having the first ethnic studies program, first Black studies program, and I learned from some of the best. Have you ever heard of a brother named Ova Tashaka?
I think I have heard him. Go on.
Yeah, I took courses with him. Then there was Dr. Professor McGee. I took a course called, about melanin. I'm very fascinated about melanin and how it works in our body and how it's part of the universe that we're in.
Right.
I've had the pleasure of some really good professors. And one of my professors, I think it was Dr. McGee, always said, and this is the African way, he said that, I'm going to say to you, brother, I am because we are, and we are because I am. It's a collective whole. I'm not an individual. I cannot be what I am without the collective whole of all of us. We're all interconnected in one way or another. That's sort of my philosophy. I don't know if it sounds crazy to you.
No, it makes perfect sense. An African rebel leader once said that, the people were his mountains, and I didn't understand what he meant. But then it began to make sense, because where do rebels go when the establishment is chasing them? They run up into the mountains. Wow. Well, so the idea of the people being his mountains, they took care of him, supplied him with food, gave him shelter, hid him from the patrols. That's what he meant. And the same thing applies to us. We need to pull together in this country, but we simply don't, because we've learned from so much indoctrination to hate each other, not to trust each other, because of this whole plantation mentality where, you know, where the Negro up in the big house would go tell massa, you know, when the Negroes in the barn, you know, or the root cellar were getting ready to riot at 3 in the morning. So this is the legacy of America, and there's no shaking it. I mean, these things are emotional level issues which cannot be challenged by logical thinking.
Okay, let me ask you this, brother. I mean, as you can see in 2018, and I know this is a word that people don't like to hear, but it seems like we've got we've always had this, but from my perspective, it seems like we've had a big Coon phenomena going on in America. We've got not only do we have to deal with the obvious group that doesn't care for us, but we also have people that look like us that are doing everything they can do to destroy us. And this has been going on ever since we came out of slavery into Reconstruction, into Jim Crow. These individuals who have been kind of cooning have kind of walked themselves right into Reconstruction and so-called freedom and Jim Crow along with us. And they're sprinkled around us today, and they're doing us a lot of no good and a lot of harm. But given those parameters, and we know that there's stereotypes about how people perceive Black males in particular. When you go over to the continent of Africa and you go to these various places, give me your honesty, brother, here. How are you treated? Because we know that there's been this sort of situation between Africans don't like Black people and African Americans don't like Africans, and then everyone has their individual horror stories where they had a bad interaction with someone from the continent. And so you tend to put that in your mind and say, that's who they are based on my individual experience with these or this individual or these individuals here. I don't want to put people in a box, but from everything I said in that mouthful, where are you at on those issues?
I'm in the position that you go to the continent and you're going to find someone who's going to try and jack you up, you know, for a few extra dollars. But I've had that experience myself. But the vast majority of my experiences were positive. Now, maybe because I went to Egypt, and you know, Egypt has an enormous tourist industry. And the tourist industry has suffered because of the Arab Spring, and now they're recuperating their losses. And so when they see a great big American like me, you know, they're happy because they know his pockets are full of money. Now, on the 2 trips that I was there, I had a beautiful time. I was treated wonderfully. The Egyptian people, by the way, are some of the nicest people you have ever met. And this is a point that I want to make. I live in America. I've lived in America all my life. I've been pulled over by the police more times than I can care to tell you.
I hear you.
And only in recent years have I actually begun to really worry that I'm just going to get shot at some point. So, you know, that's a given in America for me. But when I was in Egypt, the police over there are very, very different. They carry sidearms. But they also wear body armor, and they carry M60s and other heavy machine guns. They would wipe the floor with the average American policeman. But, you know, in Egypt is a place where you have real, and I repeat, real terrorist issues, okay? Because they are living in the heart of the Middle East. Egypt is the capital of the quote-unquote Middle Eastern world. And it is an island, if you like, of peace and sanity in, you know, an ocean of crises and chaos. Because on one side, literally on one border, you have Libya, which has been ruined by the West, and on the other border, beyond Sinai and beyond Israel, Israel's, you know, calling for war with Iran because they want to have a Levant from the Mediterranean to the Iranian border, which they're probably never going to get. And then you have us, you know, being told every day to hate, you know, President Assad in Syria. And Russia is backing up Syria because the Syrians are Christians, not Muslims.
They're not Muslims. That's right. You're right about that.
Yeah. So there's. And most of the quote-unquote conflicts in the Middle East are really about religion, not just oil. People don't know that. But my point is that when I was in Egypt, I had to probably pass that last visit, I must have passed through about 50 checkpoints, and that doesn't include the ones when you go to the museum or when you go to the train station, when you go to the library, for God's sake. Okay.
Okay.
Not once did I ever feel unwelcome. Not ever once did I feel afraid. Not ever once did I feel anyone was going to shoot me.
Okay. Do you, Brother Bey, do you believe, Brother Muhammad, do you believe that that is possibly one of the reasons why African Americans in this country may have some fear about going to Africa? Because let's be honest, we look at television, we look at movies, we kind of get this projection that Africa is this war-torn country 24/7, that everywhere is undeveloped, that it's a jungle, as I mentioned before, that it's a place you want to stay away from because we've gotten sort of addicted to the lifestyle, whatever little lifestyle we think we have in America, like a drug addict. You know, we've gotten caught up in all this skinny jean stuff and this, you know, all the sort of bells and whistles in America, which I call it little trinkets. It's like fool's gold, shiny little gold, right? Fool's gold, because we don't really, I mean, this generation with, you know, millennials, they're more into connecting with machines than connecting with people. Interpersonal skills are at an all-time low. What are your opinions on a little of what I've stated or tried to say?
Well, first of all, I want to say that there are very many places on the African continent that look like jungle and look like savanna and look like forest, and they're very, very beautiful. I mean, I would kill to live in some of them. But this notion that Africa is this backwards, helpless, hopeless continent simply isn't true. As I speak to you now, countries all over the continent and the African Union are busy creating railroad systems from the eastern half of the continent to the western side of the continent. They're putting in new freeways that will transverse the continent and circumnavigate the continent. They're putting together projects for solarification projects all over the continent. There are new projects to create water canals across the continent. There are new projects to create what they're calling green walls. That is planting trees all across the sub-Saharan regions to keep the deserts from going further south. There are efforts to build new train systems in many countries. They are laying thousands of miles of internet and high-speed optical cable all around the continent. And Egypt is spending billions on entire new cities along the Mediterranean and along the Suez Canal. They're building new airports. All these things are being done with modern technology and with the help of not just Chinese engineers and Chinese manufacturing firms, but other countries from all around the world. And the Africans are busying themselves, getting new governments into place. Most of the African continent is at peace. And those countries that are having issues, you know, their political structures are slowly but definitely changing for the better. And it's going to take a lot of time. You can fit China, Western Europe, Japan, and India into the African continent. It is an enormous place, and it is going to take time for the structural changes to become readily apparent to the outsider.
What can you remind everyone that's listening? How many countries in Africa have you so far set foot to ground on, to give people a perspective of your experience?
I've only visited one country, but I have worked with people from different countries. Okay, I'm not going to kid you about it. I wish that I could tell you I've been here and I've been there, like the old trucking song about I've been everywhere. But no, I've worked with the Liberians. I've worked with the Sierra Leoneans.
Okay.
In my time when I was doing broker deals and trade deals, I've talked to people from all over the continent about every commodity you can think of: gold, rice, other things like computer parts, used clothing, tires, you name it. But I've only set foot in Africa, in Egypt, and that's a good enough start. I had enough experience talking to people, and I'm still in the process of generating links and cultivating relationships, so that when I go to Africa on a more full-time basis, not just to Egypt, but to other countries, I'll be able to make a stand in those countries. Okay. And putting down roots is a slow process. Even if you have like $1 million and you're free to do what you want to do, you've got no kids, or your kids are grown up and you're divorced, it still takes time, because you have to establish residency and ultimately, in some cases, citizenship, and that can take 4 to 7 years in some cases. Wow. So it's best to plan ahead, take your time, and as long as you're talking to people, and even today, talking to people, that is, having conference calls like this is difficult, because sometimes people don't always have the time to meet with you, or they're shy, and they won't tell you that, because a lot of Africans aren't busy sitting in front of computer screens and talking to people, and they may be a little shy about the new technology. So we have to give our African brothers and sisters a little more time and patience.
Okay, now you have your wife is in Egypt right now, and you stated that you plan to make your residency there permanently.
Oh yes.
From your perspective, because that's something that intrigues me, the reality of, could I live abroad? I've been thinking about when I am considering the idea of living abroad, because I believe I feel like it's a catch-22. If you say you leave here, some will say, well, wait a minute, our ancestors built this place, we just can't leave America. And so a part of me is torn, because yes, our ancestors built this place, and we have a lineage to this country we call America, even though it hasn't been very well, hasn't treated us very well. But at the same time, we gotta see what else is out there. What does it take, brother? I mean, obviously finances it takes to move and live somewhere else, but what do you think is going to take for us to change our psyche? And like you said in your video, let go your fears, let go the barriers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are clinging to the idea that America belongs to us, and we built this country, and la-di-da, la-di-da. All that's true, but that doesn't mean you're going to be allowed to embrace it. I mean, look at the most famous people, the most famous Black people in the United States, the wealthiest Black people, the Cosbys, the Oprahs. Oprah doesn't open her mouth, and she knows what, and you know why? Because if she does, they'll bounce her out, bounce her off networks next day. Cosby tried to buy, I think it was CBS or NBC or something like that, and they've been plaguing him with charges of sexual harassment ever since. And it's not an accident that as soon as a Black person, opens their mouth and starts saying things, there's charges and investigations, or they die of brain cancer or something if they're really doing something serious. But this is what happens in America, and the message is clear. We don't want we don't want you waking us up out of our little dream state and telling us reality. America, white America, just wants to go back to sleep and live in the matrix. And this is something that I need to point out. The whole purpose of the 3 films of the Exodus Film Project have nothing whatsoever to do with convincing white people about anything. Okay. The films are not going to be, another attempt to convince white people that they're wrong. All 3 films are going to focus on one central issue: how Black people can go and live in African countries. I'm not going to spend any time, doing more than giving a cursory historical evaluation of racism and slavery. But most of us, we already know all that. Okay, cognitive dissonance is the primary cause of our inability to convince white America to get religion and act like it has some sense and pay its reparations.
Well, let me say this, brother, because we're going to go right. This is beautiful. We're going to go right into talking about your project around the films. But let me just say this, because you went into an area that I wanted to touch on. One of the problems I believe that we have had historically as Black people in America and currently up to now is that for whatever the reason, and I believe it may be a manifestation of the slave experience in this country that we had, unlike any other group. We're not immigrants. We didn't come over here with our shirts on our back, and we didn't come over here to Ellis Island. And we know that Ellis Island, or the Statue of Liberty, if you do your research, that's supposed to be a statue of a Black woman breaking the chains of slavery. That's what that statue is supposed to look like in New York to this very day. But of course, the Europeans here said, hell no, no way. We won't accept that design. Go back and change it. What I want to say to you is that I believe that the slave experience has caused us to have this love for white people. We want them to accept us. Please accept me, daddy. Please accept me, mama. We can always bring it back to white people and them accepting us. And my belief is that I don't want to waste my time and energy trying to see what I can do to convince Europeans or white people in America why they should stop being racist towards me. They're going to do what they're going to do. I got to do what I got to do. And we got to do what we got to do collectively. I think Black folks, we spend a hell of a lot, too much time trying to prove to them that we're good citizens, which is why Black men fought in World War I. We went into World War II. I mean, we went into the Revolutionary War. We went into the Civil War. And
exactly,
brother, I believe, like brother Dr. Muhammad said, Christopher Attucks, we always say, oh, the first Black man, it was a Black man that died in the first Revolutionary War. And I say to you, brother, the Negro should have died because he fought on the wrong side.
Yeah, well, I've actually, read something about Crispus Attucks. Apparently, he was defending his master when he was killed.
Oh my God! Now, I don't want to be disrespectful to our ancestors. The brother was doing what he had to do as he saw it at that time. But looking back at it looking at it historically, white people, he fought on the side for white people to get their freedom from the great bank of Britain. That's what that war was really about. The powers of Britain, their banking system, which, by the way, the wig wearing so-called founders of America, they never wanted a banking system in this country. They never wanted it, but yet it was implemented. But what I'm saying in a nutshell is that I believe that the brother fought on the wrong side, which is why I call 4th of July the 4th of their lie. No black person, woman, man, child should be celebrating 4th of July. It has nothing to do with our independence.
No, I agree with you. Crispus Attucks was proceeding from a false assumption, and worse, he was backed up against the wall. No matter what he did, he was going to have white people on one side of him and white people on the other side. I mean, I don't know the actual story. I wasn't there. I don't know if his master was standing right next to him and he sort of jumped in front of him because he wanted to show he was a good slave, or because he was pulling him away and the British just shot him because he just happened to be in front of one of the lead balls when they left the weapons. I don't know what happened, but because I wasn't there. But the fact that he was one of the first people killed, only speaks to the fact that he was in an untenable situation from the beginning. He was a slave the morning he got up. Yes. Okay, and by nightfall he was dead, and now he's in the annals of American history as some sort of hero. And he wasn't a hero necessarily at all, because that was like 17 whatever, I don't know what year it was, but in the 18th century, and then in the 19th century for 60 years, it was nothing but slavery, and then after that, Jim Crow. So what did he die for? He died for nothing. If he was trying to defend his slave master, fine. I'll give him kudos for being, a good employee. But beyond that, people tend not to see the context of the situation. They get caught up in the gross, and they miss the subtle. And the simple fact of the matter is that Crispus Attucks, was a slave, and he died a slave. Okay. Not necessarily a hero.
But I think that's kind of what I mean when I say we've got this sort of, because I've heard you know, as a youngster growing up, and I've heard the older generation always get kind of proud about that. Hey, a black man, he was the first one. And so what I'm saying is, historically, black men and women, we have done everything we can to show that we are good people. And you just said yourself, brother, you are a testament to this. You said yourself that you did everything you're supposed to do. You went to school, put yourself up by your bootstraps, as Clarence Thomas would say. You, you know, you know, you're well spoken. You don't have your pants below your behind like you got a bowel movement. And you yourself, as you told me on here, you have seen that you still have not been treated equitably or fairly or equally as you feel you should be with a man of your stature. Is that right, or am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And it's not just me. I mean, for a long time, I really thought that, you know, the fact that I was struggling so much and bouncing from job to job had something to do with just me. But as I got older, I began to realize that there are institutionalized systems in place in the United States, not just institutional racism, which, you know, starts in high school and even earlier, but then you have black people in these institutions like the Boule and so forth, and the paper bag association that actively work to undermine you.
That's true.
And then you have people, you know, like Colin Powell, who are, you know, very powerful people, very influential people that I myself, you know, admired, until I realized that he really didn't have the interest of black people at heart. And if you really think about it, and I hate to say it, but, you know, I think it has to be said, Barack Obama, you know, he wasn't an African American. He was an African and an American, and that's a very different thing. I mean, a lot of people believe that as soon as he became president, we'd get reparations and all this sort of thing. If he did anything good for black people, honestly, I'm not aware of it, to be honest. I mean, you know, if he did something, tell me, educate me. But, you know, it's 8 years after he was president. Thank God he didn't get shot in office. But black people didn't get reparations. There's no easy way to move out of this country and go live in a specific African country. I mean, what the Africans are doing, they're doing of their own volition.
You're right.
Okay.
We didn't get anything out of. I think President Obama, he was appropriating Black American culture. He didn't grow up technically in the way traditional African Americans grew up. He doesn't come from the same sort of cloth, even though he was in Chicago and he was an activist, as they say. So they say. I still don't know what his damn record was with activism out there, because hell, Chicago, you know, has its issues. But I always felt that I used to be a part of a radio network. I don't know if you heard of a sister by the name of Janice Graham. He does Blog Talk Radio. We always used to talk about how Obama is sort of black. He's a black man. He's a black man with, he's a white man in blackface. That's right. White man in blackface. And we didn't really get what we should have gotten. I mean, everyone else got what they wanted out of Obama, but black folks, we got left holding the bag. However, I have to be honest with you. I believe that Donald Trump is benefiting from the economy that President Obama actually put into motion, and he's taking credit for it.
Yes, of course he is.
I will say that. But not to get too far off kilter here, brother, I want you now to let the folks, good folks out here, know about, specifically now, about your project. How long have you been thinking about doing this? Where are you at in your production? Exactly what you're expecting to gain from this project? What are your goals going forward?
Well, first of all, I'm working on one film actually at a time, and I want to raise $25,000. And the reason I settled on $25,000 is because I went and looked at the film's Hidden Colors, and I saw that it cost about $25,000 to make each of them. And I know that with my editing skills and the available cameras that are available today, and my pre-production, work, the research, making contacts and so forth, even pricing airline tickets, that I could make one film for about $25,000, plus, have something left over for advertising and promotion. And I'm not looking to, to become rich on this, but I think that it could lead to maybe speaking engagements and other opportunities to create awareness among African Americans, because African Americans, like quality. And there's some films on YouTube about how to sell the Negroes, and black people, want only quality products, and I want to craft a quality product so that those people who have questions get the answers to their questions before they even know to ask them.
That's right.
So that's what I'm trying to do. I want to cover all the bases: the who, what, when, where, why, and how of going back to a given African country. So the first film will be a bunch of interviews between myself and African Americans who either have gone to live in African countries or wanted to go and live in African countries, and myself and actual blood Africans who live in various countries, telling people about their country and why their country is strategically, economically, and logistically a good place for them to come. Because the Africans do not, they do not have, welfare systems. There are no welfare systems on the African continent.
Wait a minute. Let me stop you there. That's breaking news to me, brother. There's no welfare system sort of similar to what we have here in America in the continent of Africa in any of their countries.
There's nothing like that. There's nothing like the American welfare system anywhere on this earth. Okay. I mean, they have safety nets in various countries. They have social security systems in various countries, but there's no mass army of women in weave and shoes of red high heels living in Section 8 houses in any African country with their men cast out like lepers, so that women can stay in the houses and get, monthly payments and brag about their being, independent women and don't need no man. None of that washes, in most African countries, because the continent is full of ancient cultures that go back thousands and thousands of years with indigenous religions that have nothing to do with Christianity or Islam. And the whole idea that it takes a village to raise a child, that is a very true statement. Yes, there are poor people on the African continent. There are bitterly poor people, but they're poor because they are living in a time of the colonial and the post-colonial period when the colonialists have disappeared, but they're still there in the guise of NGOs and corrupt politicians, whose only interest is as far as they can see, at the end of their nose, and that is changing, but it's a slow progress in order to make all those changes. So in time, Africa will be a much better place, and it will be a much more worthwhile place. But it's in massive transition right now, and they don't want people coming there who are going to have their hand out. If you're going to go to Africa, bring skills, bring money, bring a plan.
Okay. So repeat that, brother. If you're going to go to Africa, bring money, bring skills,
bring
a plan.
Yes. Okay. Because the Africans will welcome you with open arms as brothers and sisters. Okay. But, I've been to Africa twice, but there was no children's course at the airport. There was no old woman with a wreath of flowers to hang over my head and say, "Welcome home, son." But my fiance did meet me at the airport both times with flowers. But that's not. You're not going to arrive in Accra, to throngs of people cheering, waving pom-poms, going, "Welcome home, brother," and there's going to be this big, tearful, reunion. I mean, that's not going to happen. And if it does happen, God bless you. But most of us, when we go, we're going to show up, and, we need to have a plan and a pocket full of money, and someone needs to meet us at the airport and take us to the right hotel and sit down with us and have, beer and dinner and talk to the right people, who own small mining concessions or own plots of land or take you to the village chief. You get down on your knees if necessary, and you know, show the proper respect, and get yourself a parcel of land, and you know, have a plan. Because when the chief sits there and says, "What are you going to do with this land, son?" you better have an answer. Don't just say, you know, I'm coming home from the land of slavery and I want some land. You need to have a plan. What are you going to do with it? Oh, I'm going to get into agriculture. I'm going to get into agriculture and build some B&Bs out of containers, you know, or something of this nature. Or I'm going to build, you know, a solar farm and sell electricity to the grid. You know, or I'm going to solve a particular problem that I see with, you know, bringing in medical equipment that you desperately need, bringing in toilet paper that you desperately need, bringing in water purifiers that they desperately need. Okay, in Africa, you know, they're working on transitioning from just making crops to beginning to start to produce things out of these crops, you know, process them, because, you know, you take cocoa, for example, it's a monstrous market, but a lot of the cocoa leaves the continent, is processed into candy bars, and then sold back to the Africans. You know, this is
the thing that I find interesting, brother. Most people think that's, what is that, Swiss, what is that, Swedish, what's that chocolate that comes from, we think comes from Europe, but it actually comes, most of the world's chocolate, if I'm not mistaken, is being gathered out of the continent. That's where it's coming from. And then they put some label on it from Europe, and you're thinking that, oh, they produce the best chocolate. No, you're eating African chocolate. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the Swiss don't produce anything except bank receipts, you know, and clocks.
That's true. Let me ask you this question, because you hit on something that I need to educate myself to. Given the fact that I live in America, I work for the state of California. I live in California, Northern California. I lived in San Francisco for over 26 years. I lived in Oakland for 10. I'm kind of live in a community that's close to the capital of California, which is Sacramento. I'm not to brag or anything, but I have a job. I'm part of one of the many few jobs or employment situations where I'll have a pension. You know, because I work for the state or you work for the federal government, but you work private sector, you can forget about it, stick a fork in you. But I have a pretty decent pension developing, and with the American currency, how far, because we know the American dollar is sort of like bloop, and the only thing that props it up is the oil, which is why the United States is so deeply involved in the oil cartel, because the oil really props our dollar up, because it's not on the gold standard anymore like it for the stock market crash in the 30s. When you had the PJ Morgans, the Rothschild family, and all of those people who purposely destroyed the did the research, purposely destroyed the stock market, purposely.
Yeah, and they're still doing it. The crash of '98 and the crash of 2008 were orchestrated by the banks. So it doesn't make a difference, you know, which one you call. They're all basically the same now.
Okay, brother, we're on the same page then. Thank you. So, given those issues with the American currency, how far can my American currency translate itself over to the continent? If I was to say, you know what, I want to go over there and buy some property. I want to rent some property, or I want to buy something for the whole. Because I was doing a video, a follow-up video, where there was a brother that I was listening to, and he was saying that if you go to places like Ghana and you want to rent a house or apartment, or you want to buy, they usually, particularly if you're going to rent, they usually want you to pay for the whole year, the whole year's amount. But how does my American currency translate and benefit me in the continent of Africa, brother?
Every currency on the continent is either linked to the euro, or it is less of value than the dollar. And the dollar is artificially linked, you know, to the value of oil. That's why we call it the petrodollar.
Petrodollar.
In actuality, the dollar is literally worthless. It only has any value because people accept it as a medium of exchange. And when people stop accepting it as a medium of exchange, you know, that would be the end of the dollar. But to answer your question, each country has a different real estate market. And your dollar will go further in some countries than in others. I was just looking at prices for apartments in Egypt just a couple of days ago, and the prices, frankly, are comparable to what you would pay in the United States, $2,000, $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month. But in Egypt, you will get a building or a property that's probably twice the size of the average New York apartment, for example.
Yes.
But depending on where you go, if you go further inland in just about any country to buy property, if you get it through a trust situation, or you get agricultural land, or you get land that's dual purpose, or you get what's called chieftaincy land, you can buy some of these lands relatively cheaply. Some of them are more expensive than others. It really depends specifically on where you go. And of course, if they see you coming, you know, they see a rich American, because they assume all Americans are rich, chances are the prices might, you know, fluctuate, we'll put it that way. But buying land in an African country or acquiring a trust of land or partnership is imminently cheaper than staying in America and trying to buy land in Florida or something like that to retire, because, you know, the continent, you know, has very high elevations in many places. So even if global warming strikes tomorrow morning, much of the continent will not be underwater. So, which is not something you can say for the entire east coast of the United States. Much of Manhattan would be underwater. Almost all of Florida would be underwater if global warming really hit home and, say, you know, rose by just a meter, which is an enormous amount, by the way. But that's something in the future. But to answer your question, you can go to an African country and buy land cheaply, or acquire or rent or lease land cheaply. And in some countries like Kenya, when you buy the land, it's yours.
Wow.
In perpetuity.
Now, I would imagine this would make a lot of sense, because someone in the chat room said that I guess things are a little bit cheaper in a place like Ghana. I would imagine the locale that you are in Africa, depending on where you are versus South Africa. I heard you speak of Sierra Leone. I heard you speak of South Africa and a few other places you named in your video very briefly. I would imagine, just like America, they all have their different prices based on the geographical location on the continent, what's very prevalent there, what's booming. Would that sound right, or am I kind of off there?
No, there's booms, there's land booms in some areas across the continent. Wherever you find large amounts of industrial change, new cities, or the cities that are already there are putting in new roads, new freeways, new transportation hubs, where these places are urbanizing. I mean, Africans are moving to cities, sadly, to be honest. And in doing so, they are raising the prices around the major cities in countries all over the continent. So my strategy is to find land in areas that are more agricultural, more rural, because I would be interested in doing some farming, and also I'd like to have some peace and quiet at my age.
Okay.
So I'm not really interested in going to the cities. I've been to Cairo, and that's the biggest city in Africa, much bigger than New York City.
Okay. Let me ask you. There's a few people in the chat room, and I want to get their questions in. One brother in the chat room is saying, "What's the property tax like over in at least where you are in Africa? You're in Egypt." What's the property tax like? Do they have heavy property tax the way we have here in the States, or is it a little bit more forgiving?
Compared to the United States, the taxes are more forgiving, but I don't have specific details on what the percentages are. But they are more forgiving, and also how to the way they do things in Egypt is very different. For example, people build their own homes and buildings in Egypt. And if they run out of money, then they only build as much as they can afford. And very often you will see, buildings across Egypt, and specifically across Cairo, where they have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 floors, but the top floor is not complete. and the family is living, say, only in the first 2 floors, even to the point of hanging the laundry out the window because they don't have enough money to, put cladding on the building. So all you see is row upon row brick buildings, with concrete and steel skeletons. But things are different in Egypt than they are here. But if you go there and do some research, you can get more information.
Okay.
In fact, there's a website. It's called Wiki Procedure. Let me say that again: wikiprocedure.com. Wiki Procedure, and it's full of information on how to do things all over the world.
So wait a minute, let's repeat this for everybody out there to hear in the chat and folks that's going to hear this after we're off, Brother Muhammad Bey. Name that again. It's called Wiki.
Yes, it's called Wiki, as in Wikipedia, but it's called Wiki Procedure. And yes, Wiki, the word Wiki and the word procedure. And if you go there, it has all kinds of information on how to do all kinds of different things all over the world. Including many African countries, how to get a passport, how to get residency, how to buy land, these sort of things. Okay. So depending on the country in Africa that you're looking for, it's a good place to at least begin to start doing some research. But if you really want some really good insights, find someone who lives in the country who can tell you how things really are on the street. Okay.
I have a brother at my job where I work who's from, I have quite a few people where I work that are from the continent. And there's a brother from, a couple of brothers from Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
And he travels, he does a lot of travels every year in Europe and back and forth home. And we're kind of, we're kind of friendly with each other, but we're developing a friendship, basically.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he spent a lot of his life, it's kind of interesting. He's a brother that was born in Ghana, but he spent a lot of his life here in America. And he says even when he goes back to Africa, his own native soil of his people, they still kind of look at him a little different because, he's got a lot of that American sort of bravado to him, or whatever I'm trying to say here. But, I told him, brother, when you go back, I got to go with you. So I'm already trying to develop the relationship now, because when he goes back, I want to go back there with him because he knows the places to go, not to go. He knows the lay of the land because he goes back there all the time to visit his family.
Right.
But I also have a scientific question for you. Now, I've listened to a lot of people on YouTube talk about Egypt and the pyramids and how incredible and the destiny of our people. I've heard a brother once say that late at night, when everything gets quiet in Egypt, when everything's quiet, that you can hear they call it Dagon energies. You can hear a humming sound from the pyramid. Now, do you hear any kind of unusual sounds from the pyramids late at night?
Let me put it this way. I spent a week in a hotel right across from the Great Pyramids of Giza. And the only humming sound that I heard was the light show that went on every night. Okay? And after that, the only sound I heard was the music from the streets.
Okay.
And the muazzin at the call of prayer.
Okay.
Okay. There is and are no humming sounds coming out of the Great Pyramids. I mean, remember, the pyramids are not all made of the same thing. One is made of granite. One is made of limestone.
That's right.
And one is made of alabaster. Okay.
Okay.
They do, they flex in the heat, but they don't sing, as far as I know.
Okay. Well, I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of times when we're trying to empower our people, just like a preacher, sometimes your Black conscious community will use the same sort of behaviors that you see in your churches. They want to empower us with this, to empower our self-esteem. And sometimes I think, just like our great-grandfathers did, our oral tradition griots did, they would embellish the stories a little bit. And I think that's how I look at it. People kind of embellish things to sort of like build up our self-esteem about how we see ourselves. Because for so long in America, we've grown up being told that black is bad and everything white is good. White man's ice is better than the black man's ice, and you know, so on and so forth. I know you got people that are shysters out there that want to sell fool's gold, but you know that sometimes you got to tell a story to sort of capture our people's attention. Sometimes, as sad as it sounds, sometimes, but
well. I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate it, and I empathize with your position, because the truth is, we was kings in Africa, in African societies, but we were also scribes and farmers and soldiers and sculptors and midwives and doctors and mathematicians. Not just kings, as people like to say, to sort of embellish the stories. If we're going to be proud of our African culture, let's be proud of all of it.
Yes.
There was a huge Bantu civilization that covered much of the continent for thousands of years, which we simply do not talk about in the West at all. What we call Egyptian civilization or Kemetic civilization started as far south as the headwaters of the Nile. It didn't just start in what we now call Egypt, but it came to its, I guess you would call its finest version of that civilization in what we now call Egypt, which, by the way, a Greek word. The Egyptians don't call themselves Egyptians. But if we learn about African history and learn about the African spiritual religions and how they, had nothing to do really, with the birth of Islam or the birth of Christianity. Africa, to its credit, never gave the world a formal religion. And all the religions that have been used in Africa to subjugate peoples, including Christianity and Islam, came in from the outside, and they were used basically as the handmaidens of colonialism. Okay.
Well, you're in Egypt, where you've been traveling to. You're going to reside with your wife. Isn't Egypt known as one of the first places where they had a sort of a what's that? It's the first Christian.
It was a country that had the first monotheistic religion.
Okay, thank
Akhenaten, one of the pharaohs of Egypt, he was the first person in human history to believe in one God.
Okay,
and prior to that, and after that, as a matter of fact, because I'll just use the word Egypt, but the Egyptian civilization was so deep into a multiplicity of gods before Akhenaten and long after him, that it was impossible for one person to simply flip the entire Egyptian civilization and culture in one lifetime. Because if you think about it, it's really ingenious. An entire civilization based on the idea that you're going to die and go to an afterlife. I mean, think about that. Everybody is involved in it. Mummification, making statues, making tombs, making sarcophagi, writing tomb text and scriptures and writing things and doing all kinds of work, preparing people for the afterlife. I mean, it's really ingenious when you think about it.
And from what I've read or what I've been hearing is that the Egyptians were really into this whole thing about taking yourself to the next level, to a next place, not physically, but spiritually. And if you look at the first three pyramids that were built, I think the Nubians built, they're in the whole way that the civilization was built is in perfect perpendicular to the universe, to our solar system. Mm-hmm. All the planets align up with the landscape of how Egypt, or at that time it was Kemet, which was actually, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Cushites who actually brought rise to Kemet, the land of the black. If I'm not mistaken, brother, you probably know more than I do with your travels there.
Mm-hmm. But no, I understand what you're saying, and I think you're referring to the Giza Plateau.
Okay,
and the pyramids of the Giza Plateau, which are aligned with the stars of Orion's belt.
Thank you.
Those three stars in ancient times were known as the three kings.
Okay.
And
okay. We're having another technical difficulty. The brother will be back on. I'll just wait for him, folks. I hope everybody out there has been enjoying the presentation. Brother Muhammad Bey is working on a film project called Exodus. You heard what he said. He's working on the first stage of it. He has a crowdfunding, which I put in the description of this live stream today. And if you had a chance to look at the video that I did, I dropped it super early in the morning last night. Before I went to bed, I was up with True Royal Family, Lisa Cabero, and the whole crew last night, talking about a variety of issues. Everybody out there in Facebook Live, thank you for being with me. I hope you're enjoying the program. I want to keep bringing this type of content to the program. And I'm going to wait for Brother Bey to come back in. I think some kind of way, he said that his internet, he's got to get his internet improved. So I'm going to read some of the folks' comments. Let's see here. Until Brother Bey, Muhammad Bey gets back on, I'll read some of the comments. All them sisters there and stop. Okay, let me see. Let me read this. What do we got here? Egypt is certainly not an African country. It's a Arab. As such, is no welcome place for black. Okay. Well, brother, let me tell you something about what you're saying. Actually, if you were to go back thousands of years ago, most of the people that you would find over there would be black.
Sorry about that. I lost your signal for about a minute.
It's okay. I was just telling everybody, you know, that I was just going to wait for you to come back on. Now, somebody said, I want to dismiss something right now. Someone was saying in the chat room that, well, Egypt is not a place for black folks. It's an Arab country. And I was saying, well, if you go back thousands of years ago, if you were to go back to that place, it would look very different than it looks today. Just like America isn't what it looked like 1,000 or hundreds of years ago. Okay. Mm-hmm. And Egypt over time, or that part of the world over time, has been integrated with many different cultures that have come in and out over many decades and years of centuries or whatever you want to call. So just because the people there may look different as you perceive it to be, because you have Arabs, if I'm not right, tell me if I'm wrong or right, brother. You have people in the Sudan or people that are what you would consider Arab that are darker than me and you.
Yes.
How you think they got that black blood in them? Okay, it was African.
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you go back and you look at pictures, photographs from 100 years ago of the Bedouin tribes in the Saudi Peninsula, most of them have dark skin, at least as dark as yours or darker. But today, when you look at those same groups of people, that is the elites, they're white as snow.
Okay.
How did they get that way? They got that way because they integrated with European powers. You know, because those are the people who came in and showed them how to use money and showed them how to use, you know, the media, you know, for their own gain. And the same thing has happened in Egypt and much of North Africa. Many of the people you see there now are transplants. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing or that they're bad people because their skin isn't dark. You go down to Aswan and everybody's, you know, is as dark as the blackboard in your school. And most of the people in Egypt have, you know, dark skin or dark brown skin or something, but they don't have color issues the way we do here. Okay, I saw people arguing, you know, only on 2 occasions, and I was there for a total of a month. And the only time they were arguing was about parking. You know, they weren't fighting each other over skin color or calling each other, you know, names. And you know, we just have a very different culture, if you want to call it that here. You know, we're so, you know, hung up on skin color in America that we just have a different perspective, different than anyone's anywhere in the world.
Would you say, Brother Muhammad, that in America, you're hitting right on it, brother. In America, we're caught up into color because in America, we like to put people in boxes. That's what America is very good for. You know, that whole puts you in a box. This is what you are. You're this kind of music. You're that kind of music. You're this kind of person, right? But if you I'm hearing and talking to people that I know that are from the continent, it's more about your culture, your tribe, your lineage to where you come from, your lineage to the land, versus this whole issue around I'm black, you're this, you're that. Is that sort of been your experience since you've been in Egypt, that it's more around the clan? Is it more clan-like than it is skin color-like?
I would say so. I mean, I have seen people wearing what you might call tribal colors and tribal scarves and things of this nature. The scarf on the back of this chair is an Egyptian scarf, but it has no tribal affiliation whatsoever. It's just a variation on the kafia. If you wear it around Cairo, no one's going to look at you and say, oh, he's part of that tribe. But there are tribal patterns that you could wear, but you would only wear them if you were a member of that tribe. And the same thing holds true for the different groups who speak the different dialects all over the African continent. They like what they like. So if you go there, they may not necessarily welcome you the way you think you're going to be welcome. They might, tolerate you. They might call you, white man or something, but it's not a denigration. They're not looking down on you. They're just, they look at themselves, and their skin is very dark in many places in sub-Saharan Africa.
I'm glad you said that, brother, because I was listening when I did my second I did a second video about Africa, specifically about Ghana. And what I'm hearing in Ghana, although they welcome us there, that if you are a more fair-skinned black person, such as myself and you, brother, we got a little bit of brown cocoa butter on us, that they will call you, they have a term for a brewer, something that equates to being white. But he was saying that once they get to know you, he was saying that a lot of African people in the continent, let me generalize here, they have had more experiences dealing with white people who come over from Europe and Great Britain than they actually have with the African American, because of so little of us, and I'm generalizing here, go over to the continent. So they have a different way they look at whites. And some people will say, well, maybe the Africans are kind of cooning a little bit when it comes to white folks. And that's why, but they don't really know us. I hate to say this, they don't really know us that well, what they see of us on television in America, which is why which is why it's very dangerous for us to have people like Kanye West, who's got the public eye talking about slavery, as if we made a choice. And you got our brothers and sisters in the continent looking at this projection, and they're saying to themselves, what the hell is wrong with African Americans? And then we on turn do the same when we see negative depictions of African people in the continent. We say to ourselves here in America, with all of our so-called black privilege, what in the hell is wrong with the African? So this is all a part, in my opinion, of the divide and conquer.
Definitely.
By those who do us no harm, and I believe those that have been doing us harm historically have been the Europeans.
I agree with you. In fact, I will go as far as to say is that there's an ongoing effort to keep Africans and African Americans apart. When some Africans come over here, I've been told by some Africans who have come to live in the United States that when they come here to live, they get an orientation from the State Department. And the orientation basically says stay away from African Americans, because they're this and they're that and they're this and they're that. And I have heard this story more than once. And I've actually gone around and made some inquiries and found out that, yes, there are some Africans who have had these kinds of orientations. And there are a lot of black people, let's be honest, there's a lot of black people who, you and I don't want to be involved with in the United States. Okay. So, but we can't all be painted with the same broad brush. Okay. There's what I would call black people in America and what I would call Negroes in America, and that's being nice about it. And those people, nobody wants to deal with, regardless of the stereotypes. But the same thing applies, as you say, you know, when you go to West Africa or any other part of the continent, you know, we hear these stereotypes, you know, and it's important for us to ask our friends on the continent, our friends on the Facebook groups, you know, are these things true? Just do a little research. And then even if they are true, you know, then you can find ways around them. You can either not go to that particular place until things, you know, pan out, and talk to your friends in other parts of the continent. And who knows, you may wind up going someplace else, someplace where you'll be better treated, where you'll feel more comfortable, where your skin tone may not be a problem, or where your money will go further, or any number of variables. So, you know, the continent is huge, so you can certainly find room, you know, to settle down someplace with people you love and trust.
Wow. Can you, Brother Muhammad Bey, with the time that you have left, I know you're very, I'm pretty sure you have all kind of endeavors, and I want to thank you for the time that you've given me, brother. I was surprised that you were able to give me this much time, but can you remind everybody out there, wait a minute, my throat is kind of bothering me. Excuse me, folks. Can you just remind everybody out there your website for your GoFundMe, where they can find you, your YouTube channel, and where they can find you on all your social media, so that when they play this back, they can hear it and play it back and get all the data.
Okay. I'll also send you the links to all of my websites online, my LinkedIn account, my YouTube, I have multiple YouTube accounts, and my Facebook page and my GoFundMe. Yeah. But I am on GoFundMe. If you just go to Google and type in Exodus Film Project, most likely my project, along with that ridiculous movie they made a few years ago about the Exodus, will come up. But I'm sure I'll come up probably first or second. And if you just type in Muhammad Bey and look for my handsome face, you know, you will find me, you know, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn. So by the time this is a copy instead of a live airing, I will have sent you all those links, and then you can post them at your leisure, sir.
This is what I'm going to be doing, brother. I'm going to, when I saved your, it's amazing how smartphones are. I saved your email into my Google contact system, but it also saved into my Google Plus system. I believe it has your work number. I tried to text you on that. I just want to keep in contact with you.
I got your text.
I want to keep in contact with you, brother, and
thank you,
and see how things are progressing. I'm going to go to your GoFundMe page myself and give whatever support I can. I'm going to, when I do videos, I'm going to shout out your channel, shout out what you're doing in some of my videos. And when I talk to people, get the word out. I'm going to do my best to viral this video as much as possible so that the word is getting out. And because my goal on my YouTube page is to talk more about what's happening in Africa, to look at news around the world. I mean, I get into some of the issues around some of the knucklehead stuff that goes on in America, you know, around black men being shot, being mistreated, Kanye West's nonsense. So I have a gumbo yaya of different topics on my YouTube page. But this is the kind of stuff that I'm doing with you here right now, brother, or what you're helping me with.
Thank you.
I speak to you. This is really the kind of content is what I really want to do. I want to interview people like yourself and talk about real things that are really important, that can actually give us solutions, can actually empower us as a people. This is really what I want to make my YouTube channel really about. And most of what, because I do podcasting, I'm on Google Play, I'm on iTunes, I'm on iHeartRadio podcasting. And this is really what I want to project into these platforms. And brother, if you don't know, make sure you create yourself a platform page on blackjunctiontv.com.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
Go to blackjunctiontv.com. Put your port all. If you can, they make it very easy for you to port all your information over. I literally could cut and paste everything over with my phone. So create a page over there. Put your GoFundMe information over there, because that page, that website, blackjunctiontv.com, they are developing into a platform that if with our support may possibly allow a lot of us to leave YouTube and be in a place on a Black platform that's Black owned from the beginning to start, where we don't have to worry about our stuff getting taken down or being harassed by, you know, these platforms who don't want us talking about these sort of stuff. They want us to talk about, you know, what's the latest Nike shoes. They want us to talk about the NBA playoffs, which I don't give a damn about.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. And if you don't mind my saying so, I've also started my own news platform. It's called Diaspora Today.
Okay.
And people, your listeners, they can go to Diaspora Today. They can scroll down to the bottom of the screen, click on the log on, and they can log on and join for free. And they can post their own news stories about their lives and their work and their press releases wherever they are in the African diaspora.
Okay, well, Brother Muhammad Bey, do me a favor, brother. Send that to me as well.
You got it.
So that I can also, what I want to do is link, every time I do a YouTube video, I want to link that to my description in there to tell people to go check that out. We need more areas and platforms where Black people can congregate, where Black people can express ourselves without worrying about someone wanting to shut us down. You're familiar with Dr. Boyce Watkins, right, brother?
Oh, yes, I do. I subscribe to his videos, yes.
Okay, he actually he's been put in Facebook hell constantly. He put an article on Facebook about history, something that was historical in terms of what impacted Black people, and Facebook took it down and put him in Facebook hell, jail.
Really?
Because they don't want us, as they steal our information, as we know with the you know, Cambridge Analytica nonsense that's been going. They literally don't want us as Black people to talk real talk. And I'll probably end up deleting this video that I've got running on the Facebook, but I'm going to keep this going for YouTube. But they don't want us working with each other. No,
I guess not.
They would, if me and you were sitting up here talking nasty to each other, oh God, they would be, that would never get deleted off of YouTube. They would love it. That's just my opinion about it. But with that,
sadly, you're probably right.
But brother, to be respectful of your time and everything, do you have anything that you want to leave the people with that is very important?
Yes. Africa needs you, and you need Africa more than you know. And anything that we can do to promote the unification of African Americans and other Africans in the diaspora together over the long term is a good thing, because you know, Garvey was right. You know, Africa is for the Africans, just as Europe is for the Europeans and Asia is for the Asians, and I have nothing against that. I mean, the different parts of the world belong to the peoples who have been, you know, occupying them for thousands and thousands of years. Yeah. And I don't see any reason, you know, this whole thing with immigration that's going on in Europe is being pushed by certain groups. I'm against that. And now the people in those countries are beginning to see that those things, that excessive amount of integration and immigration is actually a bad thing. If I go to Germany, you know, I want to see, you know, white folks, you know, with blonde hair and blue eyes at the beer hall with their lederhosen and their pretzels. You know, I don't want to see, you know, Black guys pretending to be Germans, or guys from China, you know, being Germans. You know, I want to go to Italy and see the Italians, you know, and have Italian pizza. I want to go to Britain and have beer in the beer hall with exactly. real Englishmen and real Welshmen, you know. Yes. I don't want to. So I'm actually against all this immigration to Europe. And if the African countries can control their environments more effectively, those same people who are rushing to get across the Mediterranean in boats will be, you know, will be staying at home. Exactly. And they'll have good reason to. I mean, the conflicts, the mismanagement, the war in Libya, all these things are what's causing immigration into Europe. And it's all because the Europeans and NATO and the West have been, pushing these countries and undermining them in various ways, various support for dictators and selling arms and all this sort of thing. Yes. And now the chickens are coming home to roost.
Chickens are coming home to roost.
You can't do these things and then expect there to be no consequences. So, hopefully the Europeans will learn not to follow the Americans down every rabbit hole in the future. Yes. Hopefully, I don't think that the Africans have any animosity, towards, the Europeans. And my film, if I can make all three of them, it's not going to be about shaking my fist at white people. It's going to be about educating Black people about, issues that Black people need to know, not filling their heads with hatred about white people.
Yes.
So if I can be of any service, please let me know. Again, I'm grateful to you, Information Man, for allowing me to come on your program. I will send you all the links as soon as we get off the air via email. And if I can be of any service to you, or if you wish to have me back, I will be at your disposal.
I definitely need to. What I want to do as your project is getting off, as your project is becoming more and more reality, where you're ready to, put it right out there for folks to consume the powerful video, and I know it's going to be powerful. I want to be able to have you come back on whenever you want to come back on to tell the people how the project is going and what have you. Definitely, I want to have you back. So that's why we'll stay in contact with each other.
Definitely.
We got to have you on. We got to have you on many times to talk about your experience and when you actually put your final feet to ground to live permanently in Egypt. I definitely going to have to use this technology to get you on, and I want to get some updates from you, almost like a newsman on the ground, as to what's going on politically in Egypt. But before you go, I have one thing that puzzles me. You talked about Libya. Tell me if I'm wrong or right. Gaddafi was in the process of trying to unify Africa under a one currency, right?
He was. It was the African dinar system. And that is the primary reason, more than anything, that Libya was attacked. It had nothing to do with the Lockerbie bombing or any of these other issues. It had to do with the fact that if the Africans got together and began to trade in a currency that was based on the value of African resources, gold, platinum, silver, oil, manganese, you name it, Africa's got it. If they started to do that, the entire Western monetary system would collapse. Now let's just be clear.
Yes.
The head of the monetary system for the Western world, and then sadly for most of the world, is England. Okay. And it's the what they call the City of London, which is this 1 mile square city within the City of London. They don't have an empire anymore. There is no British Empire. The only British Empire is a figurative empire based on spy networks and control and command and control networks and monetary systems. And once those systems are broken, it's going to take a long time. They can't be broken overnight. And if they were, there'd be more wars. But as the Africans are getting together with their regional currencies, which are still in the works, once these regional currencies and these regional passports and these regional infrastructures really begin to take off, it's going to spell the end of the time of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund and the Federal Reserve and this system of international central banks, which are all basically about fraud and control.
Fraud and control.
Yes, after Libya was attacked and cut up into 5 pieces, they installed a central bank, something they didn't have prior to the death of Gaddafi. I mean, they probably had a central bank, but not one that was controlled by outsiders.
Let me tell you something, brother, before we come to a crescendo here. There's a guy by the name of John Perkins. I read his book. It's called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. He's a white guy. He talks about how the banking system, the IMF, how the banking system has always been used as a way to manipulate countries of melanated people, that America is an empire and has been able to forge war around the world without little to no military intervention, because they have these individuals who work for the World Bank, and they're able to hide America's hands in it because they put it into the banking system. They will identify a particular leader, particularly leaders that are dictators, who they know are not going to take the money. They call it foreign aid, but foreign aid is just another disguise of manipulative of systems to control resources. So, for example, when you look at South America, and I remember as a kid growing up, they used to always say, oh, the rainforest is being cut down. It's not good for our environment, right? And I always wondered, why the hell was that going on? And then we find out that Halliburton, which was run and operated by Dick Cheney, who was president. You got the Bush family that's been deep in oil. Dick Cheney and the Halliburton company has gone over into places like South America, where they were able to manipulate the land from the dictator of that country by saying, hey, we want you to pay back that money that we gave you on loan. And that dictator says, hey, I can't pay it back to you. Okay, don't worry about it. All you got to do is give us some of your precious minerals or precious this, whatever. And then all of a sudden, Halliburton brings in their engineering companies to tear down the trees to build roads so that they could bring the resources out. This is the type of stuff that's going on that he talks about in the book. And I believe that Libya was hit by the economic hitman, because he says that if they can't negotiate you to give them control, then they will try to create coups in your country, and they'll send in the jackals, the CIA, to do all sorts of stuff to you. And if that doesn't work, then they send in the military as last resort. I believe that Libya was a victim of the economic hitman system. I believe that even Mugabe of Zimbabwe, which we know was named prior to that by that evil Cecil Rose, which is the Rose Scholarship, Rhodesia. And Zimbabwe, was hit by the economic hitman to destroy what Mugabe was trying to do. And if the president of Nigeria, Obari, if he doesn't watch himself, Nigeria will be a victim, if they're not already a victim, of the same type of system. Because you heard Donald Trump say that he's making some demands on Nigeria. We're demanding free trade. We want free, equal trade with the United States. And I'm like, whoa. And then when they asked President Buhari, how did he feel about President Trump's statement about Africa being called a shithole country, and Haiti being called a shithole country, he did not want to say anything other than, I don't want to, you can't believe what the media says, and I just keep my mouth shut, because he knows where his bread is being buttered. He's trying to get that money. Okay. So these are the sort of events that we're seeing today. I mean, my God, to be alive to see all this stuff.
No, you're absolutely right. Sadly, the corruption in high places is far worse than most people think.
My God. Woo! Well, brother, I've said a mouthful. Once again, before we end, repeat again where everybody about your crowdfunding. Repeat all that information again real quick before we end this, just to remind people again.
Okay, I'm working on a 3-film series. The first film is called Leave, and it is specifically designed to help African Americans discover how they can move from the United States to a given African country. Okay. And sometime after this program airs, Information Man will have all the links to my GoFundMe campaign, my LinkedIn campaign, my Facebook campaign, and all my YouTube channels, and an email address in case you want to quietly fund the entire project on the backside.
Okay. Well, brother, it's been great. I appreciate you being with me, brother. Everybody check out brother Muhammad Bey, his YouTube page, his GoFundMe. Support it. You can, give whatever you can. Everything counts. Every little bit counts towards creating a project like this. Support the brother. Check him out. He's going to be sending me links. I'm going to get those links out to folks as I do more YouTube videos, more live streams. over the coming period of time. I'm going to bring the brother on to find out how the project's coming along, find out what he's doing, try to see if I can get reports from the brother on the ground of what's happening in Egypt. I would love to do that with you, brother. I don't know if you would feel comfortable doing that.
I'd be happy to be a correspondent, you know, for our people in any country.
Yeah, I want to bring you on and get these on-the-ground reports from Egypt and everything that you're experiencing out there from time to time, brother. So with that said, thank you, everybody. I'm going to end the stream. I know everybody, it's a Sunday. You want to relax. You want to check out other programs that are happening. And brother Muhammad Bey, brother, you're the best. Thank you. And I want to thank you again for giving me the right to be able to take your video and attach it to something that I did to try to bring a promotion to what you're doing, brother. Really appreciate that. Love you. And brother, go in peace. Hotep to you, brother.
Thank you. Hotep to you as well, brother. Thank you very much for having me on your program. I appreciate your time. And to everyone who's listening, thank you and take care.
Take care, brother. Thank you. Everybody out there, thank you for supporting the program today. I hope that you liked the program. I'm going to read a few people's some of your comments in the chat room, because I know that everybody has been very supportive of me and what I've been trying to do here, and I really appreciate it, folks. I was very happy to be able to get this brother on the program today. And I hope everybody learned something from what we were speaking about. I hope you take your black behinds and check out his website, check out his GoFundMe, check it out, and support. I mean, we always get on these platforms talking about supporting black businesses, supporting other black people. We always talk this kind of talk, but let's put our talk to action and support what our people are trying to do that can bring us some empowerment. So that's what I've got to say about that. How's everybody feeling out there? Hey, Diane, I'm glad to see you in the chat room, sister. The video is working. The live stream that we did Friday is working. Some kind of way YouTube fixed the problem and the whole footage is working. So I further tried to viral and promote the video as well, Sister Diane. Diane is a sister from South Africa that I talked to Friday. And so she gave me some perspective about what's happening in South Africa. And she stated that black folks are not killing the white farmers in South Africa. That's all propaganda that the media is pushing. And she lives out there. She says that they treat her pretty well out there, the South African people. So we got to get out of this stereotype that African people, our people over there, don't like us. You know, in every race and every society, you're going to have people that's going to like you and not like you. Okay? That's just the way it is. Everywhere you go in the world, people may not like you. They may like you. They may not. But we know that black folks uniquely, we're not very well liked. And hell, we're not very well liked here in America. We're being shot, killed by police. We're being attacked. We're under siege all the time. Hell, going outside of your door is an occupational hazard if you are a black male or black woman. Let me see, Miss Diana. I saw that. I'm so excited. So I'll snag snippets of it. Okay, sister, go ahead and promote it. Go ahead, do your thing. I want to say what's up to Be Fresh, Mr. Brown Jr. Thank you for supporting me. iQuiz. I saw you in the Bismore iQuizar. I saw you last night in the I think I was on there. I saw Lowcast and what's the brother who what's that brother? Brother Bismo, BG. What's that brother's name? And then I heard there's a bunch of brothers that was on there last night. I was up so late, my brain is fried right now. Let's see, brother Lions Den. Thanks a lot, brother. Yeah, I got 1,000 subscribers or more, and I appreciate that. And I'm not going to change my style no matter how many subscribers I have. I'm going to always interact with the people in the chat room. I'm going to always acknowledge everybody. Brother Underrated Darkness, why don't you come on in? I probably shouldn't do this because last time it took a long time for the other video to load up, but let me stick a link into the bear with me, folks. I put a link in the chat room. Diane, if you want to come on and talk to me for a minute before I end this. If Underrated Darkness wants to come and talk to me before I end this. If anybody wants to come into the chat before I end this and say a few words about what you heard today from Brother Muhammad Bey, go ahead and do so. Before I get ready to end this, I put a little link in the chat room. Come on in, give your words before I end. I just want to, I like the idea of doing live streams and near the end of it, having someone come in to say a few things before we end. Okay, where are we? Who do we have in here? Underrated Darkness, my brother. What was your impressions of the stream, brother?
It was very enlightening. You know, I was going through some things before I came to your channel, my brother, and it just goes to show that for me, and I think for the rest of us, that I want to pass this word out, that sometimes we just cannot listen what the propaganda of white media is talking about, and I'm talking about other nationality factors too, and we gotta reconnect with the motherland in here, and so what we gotta do, we gotta have a plan, you know, to unite and to understand that we are in the same struggle. And I think that until that's going to happen, we still going to go through ills within our community around the world. But I think the time that we have to do the work, and we have to reach out, the Africans in the motherland and the Africans over here. So today is giving that reassurance that we can't become as one family as we was before. And what I'm saying, you know, so today, I am very, very want to be more committed to the liberation of our people globally, and recapture the African spirit that we slowly miss in this country. And that's what I'm at right now. And salute to you, my brother, to bring that information, because I can imagine how you feel personally. You know, the work that you do, you know, you had to come home and you want to save our brothers. And I can imagine the pain that you go through. And I just wish that I wish right now that I just have the spirit to free all our people so we could take our rightfully place in this world. So I just want to thank you so much to love us that much, to bring things like that, because we really need it. And salute to you, the people in the chat, your daughter, and the rest of the foundation.
Thank you. I want to thank you, brother. Underrated Darkness. Everybody out there, subscribe to his channel. The brother's dynamic. He talks about proper nutrition. He has a sports program that he does on his channel, but he also gets into proper nutrition, eating the right foods, buying organic foods. Brother, right in front of our eyes, he'll make food and, you know, have the desserts and have the nice little snacks and everything out. Looks delicious. And that's why, brother, that me and you, if we can't do it tomorrow, maybe next week, because I probably need to slow myself down a little bit here. Maybe next week we can do a live stream where we can talk about nutrition, food, proper way to prepare it, all that good stuff.
Yeah, next week be better for me anyway, because I'm trying to I wanna push out two streams throughout the week, how to read labels too, and then we could talk about that, because it's very important how to relate, especially like if some of our communities do not have farmer markets. So when you don't have farmer markets, the next thing being, you gotta learn how to read labels, especially brothers, especially like if you shop for your family, and even sisters, like, because sometimes they got this organic foods, and sometimes they, you know, have organic foods in our community. It's not the same that they have it in other communities. So that's what I'm saying. Reading labels, really read minograms and all that. It is very, very important, and I definitely want to talk about that. You know.
Okay, so we'll do a stream about that going into next week sometime. I'm going to make this call out to everybody again. Everybody support my sister Diana. Support her channel. Go to her, hit her little avatar. If you're using your cell phone, hit her avatar, go to her channel, subscribe to the sister. Sister's very dynamic. She's from South Africa. She does she has a show. It's called Diane, Corns. And subscribe to her channel. You're gonna like her material. You when we did a live stream on Friday, and I was really upset because all of the stuff that we did together was like gone. I was like, where the hell is it, right? And then late last night, I discovered that all that we did had finally pulled up. So what I'm learning from YouTube is that if you do a super long stream, it's going to take a couple of days for all that content to fully forward itself or whatever. So we were on for hours, and I think it finally all got itself all together. So check that out again. Subscribe to her channel. Subscribe to my man, Underrated Darkness. Everybody in the chat room, subscribe to each other. Subscribe to me if you like. We're going to keep this thing rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. I'm going to bring you content like this. I'm going to bring more guest speakers on. I still got to get in contact with a guy that I went to college with, who's got a coffee company in Oakland called Red Bay Coffee. He's an entrepreneur. I went to college with him. I've got to make contact with him to talk to him about his business that he's going to expand into Philadelphia, Baltimore, throughout the country. And then I need to get in contact with my fraternity brother, because I'm an alpha man, brother James Shaw. And you notice that Donald, white supremacist Trump, doesn't even want to acknowledge this brother. He doesn't want to acknowledge the heroicness of this brother and what he did. He has not once said this brother's name. He has not once tweaked him. And I'm going to get in contact with him through my connections as an alpha man to see if I can bring him on live to talk about his experience when he went into that, when he was in that Waffle House dealing with that scourge. You know who that scourge was that killed those people in there. So, and then I'm going to start going out into the streets and going into the community and interviewing people about these kind of issues. So I'm going to start taking my cameras into black businesses and asking these black businesses, how did you get your start? How'd you do this? So I'm going to keep improving the content. And then my man Lions Den, he's going to have a series on my platform where I'm going to have him promoting talking about news stories. So it's going to be Lions Den Speak. So he'll come on the platform sometime and do live streams and talk about or talk about issues that are going on in the news that he's digging up. And it'll just be him. And I'll just sit back as a moderator and just, work the boards and everything. And then I'm waiting on my mix board to come in tomorrow. So I'm going to improve the quality of the sound of my broadcast for both the YouTube and the speaker.com. Check me out on speaker.com. It's under Information Man Show as well. And I do podcasting over there, which goes out to all the little social platforms like iHeart and Google Play and Spotify and iTunes. And some of the material is similar to the material that I do on YouTube. So it'll be some sort of repeated stuff, but there's some stuff on there that's not on YouTube. So I'm going to start mixing and matching some of the material and make it different over there than what you have over here on YouTube. So thank you, everybody out there. Let me read again. Make sure you sub, everybody. Hit the likes if you haven't hit the likes. Sub to each other. Sub me up as well. Thank you as well, everybody. Oh, support Lowcast. I think Lowcast is doing a live stream right now with Brother Bitter Truth in LAR movement. So, if you want to check out some more of what's going on right now, go over to Lowcast's channel, and he's getting ready to do a live stream with Bitter Truth, LAR movement, my brother Lowcast, and I might jump on with them as well. I may. Check it out too as well.
Oh yeah, I want to put something out, my brother. I did a live stream last night named Visual Opportunities. I want y'all to check it out. And also I did some cooking. I'm not gonna tell you what it is. It's small, but I want y'all to check out Visual Opportunities. I did that last night. And later on, I said within an hour and a half or two, I'm gonna do a live It's gonna be the same that I do Sunday, and I got something. I got some good. I got some surprises. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, everybody in the chat room, make sure I see the man of the hour in the chat room, Muhammad Bey. Make sure y'all all click on his avatar, go over his YouTube channel and subscribe. He's got a channel with a large number of subscribers, his bigger channel. Then he's got another channel that he's growing. He's growing as well. Just subscribe to the brother. Check out what he's doing, what he's got on there. Support him. It does us, like I'm going to say this once again, it does us no good to get on these platforms, talk about Black community and say, we need this, we need that, we need to be supporting Black businesses. Well, this is what this is about. Support this brother. Okay. Now you may not have a lot of money, but maybe $5, maybe $6, maybe $20, whatever it takes. Every little bit can help what this brother's doing. Hell, we give money to people who have a Patreon. All right. I see all the time when I get on YouTube, I see $6, I see $10 going to people's Patreon. And guess what? I have given money to brothers who have channels. Okay, I've given them $6, $5, whatever I can afford. We all know that some of us are on a budget, you know, based on what our lifestyle is. I have a child, so you know, I'm not living high off any hog. I mean, you know, I have a decent job. I'm able to take care of myself, but I'm not living on a pot of gold. You know, I'm out here just like anybody trying to make it. So everybody, let's just help each other. I got somebody calling me now. Hey, brother, I'm about to end my broadcast in just a moment, so I'll get on with y'all, brothers, in just a moment, and thank you for having me. Okay, so you guys, you're not doing a live stream now. You're gonna do it a little later. Let me see. 6 and 8 is how many? That's 4 o'clock here. So I can get on with you guys for a little while at 4 o'clock. Yes. All right. Thank you, brothers. I'll be with y'all at that time. I'm sorry, folks. I don't mean to be rude. I just got hit by Lowcast and ALAR and Truth, brother Bitter Truth. They're gonna do a live stream at, I believe, 6 o'clock. I think it's going to be 6 or 7 o'clock Eastern time or something like that.
Oh, okay.
What time is the live stream going to be your time, Lowcast? 6 o'clock? I guess they don't hear me. I'll figure it out. They'll be doing a live stream, folks. Just periodically check out his channel. If you don't have any alerts, get alerts on use Chromes when you do your YouTubing, because Chromes will give you alerts and stuff. So with that said, I got to end it. I want to thank you, brother Underrated Darkness. I want to thank Muhammad Bey again. I want to thank Diane for coming into the chat room. I want to thank Be Fresh. I want to thank Nicole. Subscribe to Nicole's channel. Subscribe to Be Fabulous. Fabulous You, subscribe to her. Subscribe to Oyapo's channel. Subscribe to Lowcast channel. Subscribe to LAR's channel. Subscribe to my brother Gav Talk Media. Subscribe to Brother Bitter Truth. Damn, who else can I name, man? I gotta write some names down on paper. There's a whole bunch of people. I hate to miss anybody. I want to give respect. Oh, subscribe to True Royal Family. Subscribe to Lisa. Say her name. I never get her last name right. Say the last name, Underrated Darkness.
Who?
Lisa
Kabara.
Subscribe to these people's channels. Check them out. Support them. And subscribe to each other. With that said, I'm about to hit the end of this video. Thank you, everybody. Love and peace.